On my channel, we've talked a lot about my fascination with overpowered anime characters. There's just something so cathartic about witnessing these god-level entities overwhelm and demonize their enemies, whether they be the antagonist or the protagonist. Gojo and Sukuna are some of my favorite examples of this. The two goats designated with the Honored One status where both the heavens and the earth bowed in their presence. Or even someone like Luffy, whose growth and manifestation as the sun god awakens at dawn to the endless night plaguing the One Piece world for hundreds of years. The point is, these characters are so immensely powerful. Their existence and the moves they make send out these massive vibrations that affect their verses at large. And with a gigantically sprawling story like Tower of God, with this immense world with countless characters, crazy powers, and sadly Rachel, the way they approach their overpowered characters is no exception to this rule. Think of the tower as this one giant ocean. You got all these fish swimming around trying to survive even though the waters are basically shark infested. But swimming with the sharks is the least of your worries, because the deeper you go, the darker, more ominous, and dangerous it gets, which is a reflection of the creatures existing in this area. They not only control the seas, but the simple insignificant moves they make turn into these giant ripples that flow continuously and endlessly. But even though those comparisons are pretty crazy, there are entities who surpass even that level of influence, who not only make the ripples but control the tide itself, turning waves into tsunamis, rivers to lakes, and Naruto fans into One Piece fans. That is the potential of the strongest ranker, and the most infamous irregular in the tower, Urek Mazino. Now, for the sake of retention, I might as well add, you won't believe what happens at the end. It's crazy. But without further ado, let's get into the Honored One of Tower of God. As the strongest active ranker, as an irregular, and as one of the founders of Wolhaikshong, an infamous organization whose notoriety is second only to Fug, Urek is part of a limited few that can actually contest the top of the tower, the people like Jahad and the 10 great family leaders. It's not an overstatement to say that every single move that Urek makes is affecting the entire tower. He's like a game-breaking glitch in the system, a bug that you can't get rid of. If he was in Jujutsu Kaisen, he'd be Sukuna's father, in Chainsaw Man a primal devil, or in a rom-com anime, he's the side character with an entourage of women simping for him. Except not really, cause Urek consistently fumbles the bag with women. But despite being regarded as an otaku, Urek Mazino is a living legend. In the current tower ranking, he places 4th, above every family leader, and second only to King Jahad. But considering that Jahad is the self-proclaimed god of the tower, and the 1st and 2nd ranks are taken by Enryu and Phantominium, who have been inactive for centuries, Urek is the technical top dog, and he runs the show. Like, you gotta put it into perspective. Urek is such a badass, he tattooed his own name on his back, so the last thing his enemies remember after he destroys them is his name. Like, that's absolutely insane. Like, it's insanity. It's honestly on some Whitebeard level type stuff, because Whitebeard never ran away from a fight. That's why he never had a scar on his back. And Urek is the same deal. He will fight anyone if he has to. He will fight everyone because he wants to. That's just the type of person that he is. You see, Urek earned a bit of a reputation. In the tower, the other name that they call this mad lad is Ray Barracuda, and that's because his waves of Shinzu move at the speed of light, and the Barracuda is the most ferocious white steel eel in the tower. Because of his exploits, Urek earned a bit of a reputation. In essence, that's exactly who Urek Mazino is. He's the largest fish swimming in the smallest ponds, and he understands this to a core. He's a person who's never lost a battle in his life, the most overpowered known creature in the tower, and the only individual who doesn't want to climb to the top or contest Jahad, but actually leave the tower altogether. You see, you got all these people who are climbing the tower. Some desire strength, others desire to see the stars. Some people even want to be king. But Urek, he just wants freedom, and he knows that he will never get that if he stays in the tower. And as we'll come to see, is that he is the only person who can actually understand Bomb and his burdens, because he lived it. He was the first, test subject in some sense, following Phantominium and Enryu. Urek is an anomaly. He is the irregular that everyone fears. He brought that reputation on his own. While you got all these people and organizations playing this crown game, this Game of Thrones, Urek just laughs at the idea of kingship because no one can conquer him. And in the history of the tower, There isn't a single person who's ever come close to breaking any of the records that Urek set for himself. It only took Urek 50 years to climb the tower, and so you get an idea of how ridiculous that is. It took Yuri Jahad 500 years, and she was praised for her ridiculous speed. And you gotta keep in mind that she's a princess of Jahad, so she likely had a lot of help along the way. He even outpaced Jahad. Now granted, Jahad and his party were pioneers, so they had to figure things out on their own, which was difficult in its own right. But Urek is and always was a one-man army, so it's pretty likely that he did most of his climbing solo. And since he's an irregular like Bomb, and his era came after Enryu and Phantominium, who ignited the bad reputations regarding irregulars, the implications all point to one thing, and that's the fact that he did it all on his own while fighting against a bunch of external forces like Fug, Jahad's army, and any other faction that would try to misappropriate his power or stop him dead in his tracks. But how did Urek become so famous? Well, let's talk about it. During his climb, when Urek reached the 100th floor, he encountered the family leader Ari Hone, where he was requested to take a special test. The task for Urek was to endure Ari's attacks for 10 minutes. Now, they had the expectation that he would probably die in the process, but instead of just sitting there and taking it, Urek actually fought back, and the battle between them was evenly matched, which was completely unheard of. Like, sure, Urek's an irregular, so the expectation that he could hold his own in battle was there, but he surpassed what people expected, and that's what really propelled him up the ranks. And so the battle ended with Urek gaining a reputation as the most famous ranker in the tower, and incidentally, he also earned the respect of every family leader, which is kinda crazy because they don't even respect their children. In fact, Kun's father, Kuni Dun, was so pissed that Urek pushed him out of the top 5 ranking that all he wants to do right now is fight this guy. Now, after becoming a ranker, this is where we see a great shift in Urek's philosophy and motivations. He chose to formulate his independent stronghold on the 77th floor, establishing his own organization and recruiting some of the strongest high rankers in the tower to join him. And from then on, he's been working to fulfill his true purpose in life. And this is the Urek we are first introduced to when Bomb confronts him on the 21st floor. Now, you might be wondering, where is this crazy part I foreshadowed at the beginning of the video? Well, we're about to get into it. When Bomb was confronted by the strongest man in the tower, Urek Mazino, seemingly by coincidence, but in actuality, this chance meeting was orchestrated by Repelista Jahad. But Urek, seeing Bomb as a challenger from Fug and not knowing who he is, chose to talk to him, because he's about dialogue before the fight, which is pretty remarkable. Urek knows a fair bit of what Fug wants. He understands that they intend to rip Jahad off his empty throne, and despite being a target of a lot of controversy, he just doesn't care about any of it. He can empathize and feel compassion for those living on the tower, and understand why they would have this fascination of kingship. They see the temptation of Jahad's authority, and wanting that power for themselves, he understands why they would desire it. But Urek as an irregular isn't only a glitch in the system, he's also the exception. If he wanted to become king, he could become king. If he wanted to kill Jahad, he could do it. He would have done it a long time ago. But Urek never wanted to become king. He sees this kingdom that Jahad created, and all he witnesses is a limitation, a small dream that could never contest with what he wants in his heart. Coming from outside the tower, Urek knows that there is this wide world out there, unexplored and free, and he wants to roam and claim that as his own. This huge world with an endless sky, countless stars that illuminate the night, a place a million times more expansive and free than the tower ever could be. And just by believing and dreaming that such a fantastical place like that exists, Urek can't help but think that what everyone else wants and desires by climbing the tower seems so small and insignificant. The tower is like a fish tank, and it's far too small to contain a whale like Urek, who instinctually wishes for a grand ocean. Urek desires an undefined free territory. He doesn't want to live under a system that limits him. With his wings, he wants to fly as high as he can, until his very last breath. You know, the tower is kind of like this old Chinese proverb about the frog at the bottom of the well, never understanding the depth of the world around him, because all it can see is the heights of the sky. They all live in such a small world, walking a very narrow bridge, and when Urek made it to that peak after climbing the tower, all he felt was pity for Jahad, the 10 great family leaders, and so on. Urek Mazino is not just the strongest man in the tower because he has the brute force to back it up, but because his dreams are much larger, his will is far more resilient, and there's no one, not even the king, who is more free than him. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Urek Mazino. If you guys liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and comment if you want to see more Tower of God content. And with that, I'll catch you guys in the next video.